What is the best webcam for working from home? I may have gone a little overboard, but I want to test all the options, including some more unconventional ones like a video camera and DSLR. Well, technically this is mirrorless. None of this is sponsored. I researched and bought these myself and borrowed some mirrorless cameras, in addition to the one I'm filming on now. So here's what I'm testing. There's 4 under $100, the Papalook AF925, the Logitech C310, the Victure SC40, and an off-brand video camera. In the $100 to $200 range, we have the Razer Kiyo, which actually is sometimes under $100, and the Logitech Streamcam. And finally, in its own category, the Brio 4K. Where's the C920? Sold out. But the Logitech C920 should fall between the Logitech C310 and the Streamcam. So looking at those two should give you a pretty good idea. None of these webcams are going to give you something that looks like this. For that, we're going to need a DSLR or mirrorless camera, and I'm testing two, the Canon M50 and the Canon EOS R, which is what I'm shooting on now. I put chapter markers in to make this video super easy to navigate so you can find any of the side-by-side comparisons that you want. And let's start with the 4 under 100. I want to look at the Papalook first. Why is everything pink? It's not even the cheapest option. I can get this looking a little better by messing with the lighting, but it doesn't take much to get us to a second problem. Highlight blowout. Boop. It got really good reviews on Amazon, which is why I wanted to test it. I think we can do better. Let's get a name brand in here. So the Logitech C310 was released in 2010. Right out of the box, the image lacks contrast and color, but at least with Logitech, we can adjust this. Not perfect, but better. But is it better than my iPhone or laptop webcam? Because that really is the bare minimum criteria. I suppose it does look better, but is it better enough to really justify the cost? I think we can get better value, which brings us to the cheapest of the pack, the Victure SC40. The image is sharp, but it has a sort of weird pale yellow cyan tint. But it's better than my laptop, which is quite possibly the worst webcam I've ever seen. It's better than my iPhone, and it's crisper than the more expensive Logitech C310. I tried to change the lighting to get rid of this weird tint, but I wasn't very successful. But considering it looks better than everything I've tested so far, I'm pretty happy for the price, but I wouldn't pay more than $30 for it. I mean, it thinks these skin tones contain blue and cyan. The weird color profile does make green screening with the Victure a bit difficult. On zoom, it looks all right, but if you want to use OBS, this wasn't a problem with any other camera that I tested. I'll give the Victure a little star as long as you don't care about the colors or want to do advanced green screening. What about using a cheap video camera? So here's a brand I've never heard of, Aabeloy? There's 2 ways we could use this as a webcam. The first is through its built-in webcam software. It's not bad. It's clearly better than my laptop and my iPhone, but honestly, I thought a video camera would just crush these webcams. Bigger lens, bigger sensor. That just wasn't the case. All of these webcams are crisper and, except maybe for the Victure, have better colors with less blowout. Maybe we'll get better quality with the second option, and that is to use an HD capture card. Got this one for $10. So the way this works is if your video camera has an HDMI port, you can use an HDMI cord to plug it into an HD capture card. And the HD capture card turns it into a webcam. Theoretically, this should work for any camera that has an HDMI port. But there's a problem. The camera does not output a clean HDMI signal, which means that it's going to reproduce what's on the screen here rather than taking an HDMI signal directly from the camera. So if you can't turn off these icons here, they're going to be on the screen. So how do you know if a camera has a clean HDMI signal? The best option I found is to check this list from Elgato. Unfortunately, it focuses mostly on name brands, especially DSLR and mirrorless cameras. For this camera, we're stuck with webcam mode, which looks okay, but I'm still not going to recommend it because its construction is remarkably cheap. This piece of plastic broke off from a mystery location, and this is the menu. There are some nice mid-range video cameras that have a clean HDMI output, like this Canon. But at that price point, you could get the Brio, which looks awesome. But if you're thinking, well, I want the video camera because I want a background that looks like this. Even with a nice video camera like the Canon, it's not going to look like that. I'm going to explain why, but let's first take a look at the Razer Kiyo. The Razer Kiyo has something special that none of the others have. And that's a built-in ring light. I've gotten so many questions on this webcam after the lighting video, and I have some thoughts now. There's two issues. One, the ring is too small to give that diffused soft lighting. But the second thing is that you have no control over where to position the light. It's always going to be directly in front of your face. If you've watched my lighting video, then you know how I feel about that. It makes images look flat and washed out. But just because I'm not a fan of the ring light doesn't mean I don't like this camera. I do. Here, the ring light is off and my standard lighting setup is back on. My only complaint is that the color profile is a bit off, and it gives my skin a sort of reddish orange. This becomes really apparent if you put it next to the Streamcam. So I've added some saturation to the Streamcam. So let's go ahead and do that for the Razer too. Maybe that'll make it look better. The Razer Kiyo just doesn't have the range of color. So if you're willing to go up in price just a bit more, the Logitech Streamcam is a nice upgrade. I'd say it's the first that really diverges from that quintessential webcam look. Like every single Logitech camera I tested, its look right out of the box is a bit desaturated and flat, but this is easy to change. You can also change the orientation from horizontal to portrait. It's really only useful if you're using a program that supports changing the orientation, and if you want to stand and present in front of a green screen. Like this, which is something you can do on most conferencing platforms, and is the subject of my next video. But I had to make this one first because not all web cameras can green screen, which I have since learned. So what do you get if you pay, in some cases, double the price of this for the Brio? Better color. That is what you get. And it's got a slight edge on sharpness. Do I notice that it's 4K? No. Zoom's max streaming is at 1080 anyway. It's also advertised as having one of their best onboard microphones. But if you watch the mic video, then you know how I feel about that. Here's what the onboard mic sounds like on the Brio 4K. Okay, that actually sounded pretty okay. But I still think you should get a standalone mic. But there's a thing that none of the webcams have. That super professional blurry background that is native to the lens, not simulated or added after the fact. Okay, for that we're gonna need a DSLR or mirrorless camera. I'm focusing on two, the M50 and the EOS R, which is what I'm using to film right now. Like the video camera, we have two options for using these as webcams. The first is through free webcam software, newly released by Canon. Sony, Nikon, even GoPro have these as well because of 2020. And the second option is an HD capture card, which used to be your only option. Let's start with the free software. And for comparison, here's the Brio 2. Forget the Brio. I'm totally kidding, the Brio is super nice. It really held its own, especially against the M50. But let's take a closer look. So I'm capturing this footage through Zoom with a screen recorder. Of course, the EOS R is crisper and has more color depth, but it's also 4 times the price. These look really good with the software, but let's just see what they look like with the HD capture card. Oof, yikes. I'm convinced that the Elgato Cam Link must look better, but I'd spent enough money already. So let me know in the comments. The good news is if you get a newer camera that's compatible with the webcam software, you don't need to worry about this. Now, about that blurry background. I said you needed a DSLR or mirrorless camera for that. But you might be saying, well, my smartphone can make a blurry background. Yes, but that's simulated and can be turned on and off. And it doesn't always get it right. But real blur, or bokeh, that always gets it right, that happens in the lens itself. The way it works is this. When a lens like this is wide open, it bends light at a steep angle, which creates the blur. If you narrow that opening, light enters at a flatter angle, and you get less blur. Physics. The size of the opening is measured in f-stops. Confusingly, a lower f-stop means a wider opening. And that blur is actually what the sensor sees, so it can't be turned on and off after the image is taken. Now, you might have noticed that the M50 has a lot less background blur than the EOS R, and that's because the lens that it comes with only goes down to an f of 3.5. It's capable of a lot more blur than this, but you'll need a different lens. In terms of why I've essentially never seen any bokeh on a webcam, my guess is that it's really hard for these stubby little webcam lenses to manipulate and bend light in the same way that a lens like this can. That goes for most video cameras too. And that is regardless of whatever f-stop they have. The Streamcam has a fixed aperture of f2.0. Yeah, that's not really the same. So don't expect it from a webcam. Just because these webcams don't have a blurry background doesn't mean we can't hack it. You can take a picture of your background, then paste it into Word, right-click it and say Format Picture, and add a blur effect. Now you can right-click, save the picture, and this is what you'll upload as your virtual background in Zoom or whatever platform you're using. It's never going to look quite right, but you can play around with it and get it looking pretty okay. So, conclusions. So we've already lost a couple, but in terms of the rest, it really depends on what you're looking for. If you want something crisp on a budget, go with the Victure. Just know that you're sacrificing on color and advanced green screen ability. So none of this. If you can go up to the Razer, what you'll get is something that is super crisp. Crucial if you're writing on a board, for example. It'll have better color, but it won't be great. But you know I don't care about that ring light. The Streamcam is my all-around favorite option. Great color, great clarity, high end of the price spectrum. The Brio, of course, looks the best of all the webcams, but it is so expensive. In Europe particularly. In the US, it's just a little more than the Streamcam, but in Europe, it's like $250 to $300. It's important to mention that I can make all of these webcams look terrible with bad lighting. So keep in mind, to get the best out of any of these, you need to optimize your lighting, which you can do for free with a couple lamps. Or you can get even fancier and build a living room studio for under 200 bucks. But in terms of my webcam preference, the DSLR and mirrorless cameras just bring such a professional edge. It's a big investment, but if you present for a living, I think it's worth considering, especially given how good it looks when doing live green screen work. Plus, you can use it as a camera too. You can't do that with the Brio. Look for a camera that's either compatible with the brand's webcam software or has an HDMI port and has video capability. And if you're wondering, this is what it actually looks like on Zoom. This is recorded through a second computer receiving my Zoom call. And you can do this to varying degrees with all the webcams I tested except the Victure on essentially any of the conferencing platforms. And how to do this is the subject of my 5th video. This is my 4th, still a brand new channel, and I really appreciate all your support. To my 5,022 subscribers, thank you. The next video will be up soon, but in the meantime, please enjoy one of my other 3 videos.